From throwing disgusting racial slurs at rival Nigerian teammates, to pulling out of the 2020 Tokyo Olympics a week before they took place, here's the real reason everyone hates Liz Cambage. Let's kick this off with the time she called her Nigerian opponents monkeys during a closed-door game with the Australian national team before the Tokyo Olympics. According to the former Opal's Jenna O'Hay, after Cambage got into a fight with the Nigerian team, she even told them to go back to your third world country. Not to mention, there were also rumors about her hitting one of them. Of course, when the news broke out, Liz received massive backlash for her comments, and the athlete went on her Instagram to clarify that she never used those racial slurs or hit anyone. Cambage says she was hurt by these false rumors because it painted her in a bad light. But aside from that, she also played the victim card. Because after Liz accidentally fouled a Nigerian player on the court, they hit her while she was sitting on her bench, and instead of doing anything about it, she chose to walk away. On top of that, Cambage kind of made the entire thing about her declining mental health, and how this situation drove her to a very low point. I don't know about you guys, but I see some sprinkles of gaslighting in the mix, especially after the Telegraph got a video of what actually happened. Apparently, Cambage elbowed into the head and neck of the Nigerian center while being guarded by Victoria McCauley. And when the problematic player was taken out of the game, she came back after a timeout and slapped a Nigerian player in the face, who in turn punched Liz as she walked back to the bench. Sheesh. Get this though, many of the Australian players who were at the practice said that this wasn't the first time that Cambage had acted out. But what happened this time was the last straw, and it was the worst one. What's even crazier is that some Nigerian teammates heard Liz say just hours before the game that she wished she played for Nigeria because the Australian team was racist. Say what now? Also, as complicated as the situation sounds, it's even worse than we thought. Because later, Andrew Bogut, a former Australian basketball star, said that the actual words Liz used against her Nigerian opponents were even more disgusting. And what we heard was the PG version. According to Bogut, there's a lot more that went down back then that the players can't say on the radio. There were also words that nobody wants to repeat because they are that bad. And as far as Liz taking the victim-blaming route goes, Andrew thinks that mental illness can't be used as an excuse to act insensitive and downright mean toward other people. You'd be surprised to know that this isn't the first time Bogut has said that Cambage's comment was unacceptable. Back in 2021, there was another incident when the Australian centre attacked a jockey ad for being whitewashed. Basically, the retail company shared team photos of the Australian Olympic and Paralympic teams wearing clothes supported by Jockey. And Liz was angry because there were no players of color anywhere.
One token POC in a photo is not good enough. At AOC. It's sad. The whitewashing is sad.
Apart from Maurice Longbottom, a rugby player who was the only Indigenous Olympian shown in the photos. But you know what Cambage did? She took the social media road and called out Jockey like crazy for not being inclusive enough, and shared the picture Maurice was in with the caption, "Fake tan doesn't equal diversity." Liz also said that some of the best players Australia has are Indigenous people, but they keep getting sidelined for no reason. I wish that was the end of it, but it got worse when Cambage added, "How am I supposed to represent a country that doesn't even represent me?" and threatened to boycott the Tokyo Olympics. Now, some people didn't take her words that seriously, like the former Australian women's basketball coach Tom Marr, who said if she were Liz's coach, she'd never listen to any of her threats. And if the player threatened to miss a game, Marr would simply hit her with a "good luck, see you later." But others, like Andrew Bogut, weren't going to let her off that easily. The way he saw it, Cambage also wasn't in the Jockey promotional photos because she was fronting another campaign at the time for bonds. And guess what? They're one of Jockey's biggest competitors. So they were obviously not going to reach out to her. The former NBA player added that it was rude for Liz to count color tones in pictures and called her out for creating drama, because she made it seem like Jockey was actively trying to make Australia look white. But the truth is, there's no way the AOC would allow that, because in this day and age, if that happened, they'd have millions of people chasing them with pitchforks. Also, Bogut mentioned that there were many other things that you needed to consider. Some of the most famous people of color who play for Australia, like Patty Mills and Ben Simmons, were busy being in the best league in the world at the time, and they couldn't even make it to the photo shoot. Sounds reasonable, right? Well, for Cambage, who doesn't like to be told she was wrong, she went on her socials once again to stand up for herself. But instead of countering Bogut's explanation with a solid argument, Liz just called him out for being obsessed with her, saying he's been talking about her for like 10 years and needs to get a life. Andrew appears to have slam dunked on her, She didn't even have anything to argue with anymore. But what's interesting is that many people on Twitter agreed with Bogut's defense, saying that Liz has a habit of exaggerating things to make them about herself. Aside from that, the Australian centre has a reputation for doing her own thing even when she's told not to. Like the time she went to a music festival in 2015 instead of an Australian Opals training camp, which meant Cambage had to say bye-bye to her spot at the Olympic qualifiers, which were supposed to take place next month. You see, the Star Centre had to attend at least one of the 2 team practices in Melbourne to get medical clearance before the 3 warm-up games against Japan. But instead, she went to Byron Bay for Splendour in the Grass. And because Liz wasn't able to make it to the practice sessions, she couldn't be in the Oceania Championships against New Zealand either. Now, normally teams don't like losing their strong players, especially right before their matches. But Brendan Joyce, the coach of the Opals, said it was pretty easy to take her off the team. According to him, it was a decision that had to be made, not only for Liz but also for the team. Because even before she ditched them for a very important match, which was so not cool, Cambage used to show up to other practices very late and never took their schedule seriously. Even Rachel Jerry, one of her teammates at the time, said that Cambage choosing a music festival over a camp wasn't in line with the kind of culture they were trying to build. Not only did she let her team down once, but they'd also have to figure out how to play without her in future games. Liz, on the other hand, said the reason she skipped that practice match was because she was still recovering from the Achilles tendon injury she suffered 10 months ago. But even then, many people criticized her for not resting enough and choosing to lead the party life when her teammates were counting on her recovery. I'd say though, abandoning your teammates in a practice match is one thing, but abandoning them right before the Olympics has got to be the worst. Back in 2021, Liz said that the COVID pandemic had done a big number on her mental health. Apparently, midway through a WNBA season, she was suffering from health problems and was prone to having panic attacks and throwing up. But you see, many people said she was making excuses, because right before the games, the Australian basketball star was in the news for all the wrong reasons. For one, multiple people close to the team told News Corp that Cambage had been seen out in Las Vegas, even though she was given strict orders to be inside the Opals team bubble. As always though, Liz defended herself by saying she had been in the hotel room the entire time and only left it for the All-Star game. Things were still not that bad until news broke out that the AOC was looking into the Australian player for allegedly hitting a Nigerian teammate. And before you knew it, Cambage put out a statement saying she'd be pulling out of the Tokyo Games because of her mental health. Now, the timing was definitely off. But what's worse was that Cambage's team had to adjust their plays without her, which according to Mariana Tolo left them with a pretty bad game plan right before the Olympics. So there you have it. From pulling out of the 2020 Tokyo Olympics a week before they took place, to throwing disgusting racial slurs at the rival Nigerian teammates. These were the real reasons everyone hates Liz Cambage.